Okay, everyone. My dear friends, let's do some good learning. Thursday night shir, Pashas Vayetze. Even though we're not learning a Pashas Vayetze, Bashkacha Pratis, turns out that quite a bit of what we're going to learn tonight, it's a continuation of last week. It happens to be that it's psukim from this week's parsha, explanations, quite a few from different parts of the parsha. It's like 3 different places where he's explaining psukim from the parsha. An indication that we're learning the right thing. Okay, first let's make a dedication. Tonight's shir was sponsored by Eliza Koren. It's the final sponsorship of a series of sponsors of Thursday night shirs, and they were all in honor of Carol Ann Basser Herbert and Yospe Basfeivel. May their neshamas have an awesome aliyah, and only to the greatest of heights. Much bracha mazel mit alle gute Sachen. Yes, and a lot of bracha to you. Thank you for the dedication. And then there is another dedication tonight in honor of the Mittler Rebbe. Today is the Mittler Rebbe's Chag HaGeula and his yard site, and we're learning, the Maimer we're learning is from the Alter Rebbe, but recorded by the Mittler Rebbe, as we know that the Mittler Rebbe compiled the Siddur. It's his writing, so we're learning from the Mittler Rebbe. And this is by Shimon Markel. So Hashem should bench you, Shimon, and I love your insights I get from you all the time when I see your comments on Facebook. So Yashir Koyach for helping me out when I need. Thank you. Much bracha to you and all that you need, Begashmis, Beruchnis, you and your mishpacha, whatever you're thinking about. May the Mittler Rebbe, who's known to have been full of miracles, especially like Boimer, especially regarding children, but B'chlal, may the Eibishter, may his bracha come to you for allem gut and for alle gute Sachen. Thank you. Okay. So we were going to do part 2 in this discourse. We're holding the middle of Shar Birchas Hamazon. We're learning an explanation on a mimer. That's an explanation on the other mimer, which we didn't learn the first mimer. We just learned the explanation, and now the explanation on the explanation. Last week was a fascinating discussion, and just to recap where we're holding over here. And I was planning really this week, initially, when I said last week, to finish the mimer, but I finished a little earlier last week than I wanted to, and so I'm not planning to finish the mimer this week. We're going to do one more week. Next week, Be'ez Hashem, we're going to finish it. Next week is not too much left, and I just feel a little weak, a little tired, so I don't think I'm going to last to finish the whole thing. So we're going to do a nice chunk, and then next week, Be'ez Hashem, we're going to complete the mimer. So 3 weeks was for the first part, and 3 weeks for the other part. Shar Birchas Hamazon of the Mittler Rebbe. The idea over here that he's discussing in the original mimer that we learned was the difference between the first blessing of Birchas Hamazon, which was instituted by Moshe Rabbeinu as a thank you for the man, and the as a blessing for the man, which is called Lechem min hashamayim, food from heaven, bread from heaven, and then, which it says in Svarim that they said, Hamoitzi lechem min hashamayim, different type of a bracha, that God gives them bread from heaven. And then there's another kind of bread called Hamoitzi lechem min ha'oretz, and that's the bread comes from the earth, which Joshua instituted when the Jews came into the land of Israel. We started eating bread from the earth. And in the Maimah we learned 2 weeks ago, over there we discussed the difference between these 2 types of sustenance. In general, the bread from above is lechem and hashamayim, is chachma influence, which brings us to Yichud Allah, the higher Yichud. And then the bread from below is Yichud Tata, the lower unity. It's called bread from below, which is a much lower level of sustenance, but yet it's where the pleasure of creation takes place, where there is more separation, more disconnect, and yet compliance, subservience to God's will and to God's unity is very satisfying to Hashem. And these are the two breads, and over there we discussed the idea why you have to add dafka in the second blessing, the idea of bris and Torah, and all this was discussed then. In last week's shir, it was a complete. It seemed not related so much to this discussion of lechem and hashamayim and lechem and haaretz. Yet in this week's, we're going to tie it together. We're going to tie last week's shir with the mimer we learned in the past couple of maimarim. For those who want to know what that was, that mimer was called the soul of the land. This discourse, even though that's the way I refer to it, I called it on YouTube, because it's all about Eretz Yisrael and so on and so forth. That mimer was called V'akimoisi as Brisi. I will establish my covenant. This mimer is called Lahovin Sheirish Hadvarim. Lahovin Sheirish Hadvarim Anal. It's just to explain the matter. I called it on the website, on the YouTube, referred to it as the blessing of the woman. The reason I called it the blessing of the woman is because the first part of the mimer, he's discussing very much the concept of called avodas habirurim. Now, I can't obviously go, these classes are 2-3 hours each, and we've done already 4 on this whole concept. So, to give it over in a nutshell, I'm not going to do. You can study all of that and or some of it and get a hold. But I think each week the concepts are understood on their own. That's also true. But to get the full flavor of it, it would be good to learn the whole thing. Today we're holding in the Siddur, again in the new print of the Siddur, Mashiach, page 358, Gematria Mashiach. Baruch Atah. I think I didn't make a bracha yet. Talking all about brachas, we got to make a bracha. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shakol b'dvarei. Okay. B'kol zeh moving marshal Amar Azal. This is what we're holding. So let me just give a little something. He opens up in the last week's discourse. The main theme was the discussion of what's called avodas habirurim, the work of doing birurim, which is connected to this week's parsha, because that's what Yaakov Avinu goes down to Mitzrayim to lift up. Not to Mitzrayim, to Lavan's house. It really begins this avod of the Jewish people, primarily in the time of exile, to collect the sparks of holiness. That's the idea. And what happens when you collect the sparks of holiness? All these sparks of holiness are then integrated above, and it goes up. These are sparks that come from a high place, and when we lift these sparks from these shattered vessels, and we lift them up to their place, in their source, they're even higher than our source. So that's called the idea of tohu is higher than tikkun. So the sparks that have fallen down are from the world of tohu. They're lower than us, and they're found in all the inanimate and vegetation and animal life, and humans as well, that are not outside of the Jewish people, are all these sparks of tohu. And in a sense, even in the Jewish people, our bodies and our animal soul is also all part of these sparks of tohu. And when we serve God and figure out a way to integrate all of this into Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, into a recognition of of Hashem and service of Hashem, we elevate these sparks of holiness. They get elevated to the rich, infinite lights of Tohu from where they come from. And then they bring down that extra light down into Tikkun, which means into the rectified vessels of Tikkun, which is the source of the Jewish neshama, which is also called HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And it brings added vitality and life into HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's why last week we learned a stunning thing. Va'achalta v'savata, you will eat and you will be satiated and you will bless God. So the simple meaning is, when you will eat and you will be satiated, afterwards you will bless God. But what we learned last week is that through the eating and the satiation itself, the eating and the satiation, that means that you, as a human being who is in a state of attachment to Hashem, will extract these sparks through the food, because the primary effect we have on elevating sparks is through us being consumers. And we are consumers mainly in food. We are consumers in living in general. We consume things, we have clothing, stuff we use in our homes. All this is all consuming things, constantly ordering. Everybody's ordering from Amazon, from this, from that, right? Or used to go shopping, now everything is coming to the house already. But all this stuff that we order, it's all becoming part of our Jewish experience. So it's all elevated in the realms of clothing, in the realms of shelter, whatever it is. But those things last longer, so you don't have to constantly replenish them. You don't need to order shoes every single day. You wear them for a little while, till you wear them out and you get a new pair of shoes. But when it comes to, what's it called again? When it comes to food, we constantly need new food. So your potato will not last you for 2 years. Every week you need a new order from the grocery. Every few days, whatever, depends on how much you're storing in your house. Constantly replenished, so constantly taking it. So all this, these nitzutzis that comes through eating, ubeirachta es Hashem, since they're elevated to their source, they bring a bracha down to Yud Kei Vav Kei, to the world of Tikkun. They bring added light and translate it into avoda, into service. What kind of enhancement does it do for the person below? It enables us to love God with a boundless, infinite love, not with a limited love, with an Ein Sof love, which is the idea of Avas Hashem b'chol ma'odecha, which is limitless. The human, the neshama that is based in the worlds of kedusha, of holiness, in the world of tikkun, its whole experience is very beautiful and amazing, but it's measured. To have an experience that's not measured, that's Ein Sof, is dafka from the nitzutzis as they attract the infinite light of Tohu, and that's the idea of Birurim. And he explains that primarily that's achieved by our table. Eating even goes on the table. So the sages say, today's days, the person's table is a kapara, is an atonement. How can a table be an atonement? Because if there's any blemish in a person's neshama through a sin or so on and so forth, that's because in the spiritual structure above, and even in the divine source, there could be various different blemishes, which have to do with the sin, God forbid, the mistakes that we do, which can cause blemishes above, a lack of nourishment, malnutrition, that we didn't draw down whatever needs to be drawn down in mitzvahs, and so on and so forth. So when we, in order to heal it, in order to fix it, when we bring down infinite light, boundless light, it usually does the repair. And that's the reason why it's similar to a korban, just eating, because by eating, you're taking these sparks and you're elevating. And that's the meaning of the table of a person is machaper. Now, in a more Kabbalistic term, this idea that we take the sparks and we elevate it, why are we the ones doing it? Because we are considered God's wife. We are considered God's table. He explained that Adam, above, is the masculine manifestation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu as an Adam. His table is referring to Malchus, that's called his table. Just like the woman is the one who prepares the table for the man. So she's the one who's cooking, making, she's bringing in all the food. She's making it happen. So he gets married to her, but maybe she gives him life, literally. What's the man without the wife, he'll open up a tuna can, a little sardines, a little peanut butter. But if his wife takes care of him, she feeds him, she prepares, she puts the food down on the table, she makes it happen for him. And by literally, she's giving him life. So spiritually, the Shekhinah, which is called the feminine part of Hashem, his wife, and we are all parts of the Shekhinah, our job is to provide these sparks, to provide the food. We put them on the table. Could be the reason, I just had this thought while I was doing the review, that's the reason women shop much more than men. That means women are much bigger consumers. They're constantly buying. One man buys a pair of shoes, 1 to 3. A wife is buying 6 pairs of shoes by the time, for his one. Much more clothing. So it's a good thing. Especially in the Maimer, he explains that the man without the woman is a nobody, a nothing. You're not even called man, Adam. Tafka, the power of Miloi, the hidden letters, the 19, that's part of 45, that we learned the last week. And not only does she add more life to him, she brings him down more life because she brings him the nitzutzes, she brings him the sparks, and drawing down as a result of those sparks the extra light and the extra life forces into him. But even more than that, even the makeup of who he is as called Adam, man, is only because of the female element inside of him, which later becomes his wife, an independent entity outside of him. But she is the one who's supposed, so a woman is supposed to, the more she consumes, the more she spends and brings in, it's all healthier. That's why it says he brings in the Maimer, two powerful things. That all the bracha in a person's life comes b'schus his wife, and the parnasa, literally parnasa, comes all in the merit of the wife, because she's all the blessing from above of the infinite bracha. God doesn't give anything unless we send him up something from below. That's what it says in general, that for every drop of rain that comes from above, 2 drops have to go up. Which means there has to be Surusa de Latata, which is, Surusa de Latata means arousal from below, which means Maya Nukfin, feminine waters, which are all these sparks of holiness that we need to send upward. And based on this whole idea, he explained the whole idea of Eishes Chayil Miyimtza, the woman of valor, Batach Bolev Baila, her husband trusts her, because without her, he's hungry. Without her, he has no life. He'll be weak. So he trusts her. That means, and when we say of a husband, we're talking about even HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the ultimate man. Hashem Ishmael Chama, right? The man above. The cosmic man. He's depending on us. We feed him. These sparks of holiness. V'shalal, this is called shalal. It's called the spoils, because we extract it from the unholy. From the klipa. Because before we get involved and use it, what do you want? So if your wife orders what from Nordstrom, from Macy's, from wherever she's ordering, Banana Republic, where she's ordering, and she's getting these things. Where is it better that all these stuff should sit there in the department store? That's when it's all part of klipa. Your wife buys the new pair of shoes. She wears a new dress. She has I don't know what, whatever clothing or whatever things she's consuming and using. Now she elevated the spark. It became part of a Jewish experience, part of holiness. I know the men will be upset at me for giving this license for the women to spend. The more you spend, the better. And you're actually bringing bracha, blessings. Of course, halachically, you need to have permission for your husband, I'm not saying. But understand the concept. The men need to understand this. And the women are the main consumers, because as the pasuk says, "Vatitain teref lebesa." She brings teref. She's the one who gets the 288 sparks, which is really the root source of all the sparks that there are. She's the one who goes there and brings all those sparks. Teref also means the prey. She goes out to prowl, find prey. She brings it home to the house with all the infinite blessing that comes along with it. So all of this is, where is he going with all of this? All of this is called lechem min haaretz. It's called bread from the earth. Malchus is called earth. It's all whatever is stimulated in terms of divine influence that is in reciprocation and stimulated as a result of sparks of holiness that are going up. And who is responsible primarily for this process of sparks of holiness going up? That's Malchus, that's the woman. Shulchanei shel adam, the table of a person. He also explains the pasuk Gimel Asu Toiva Lo Ira. She brings him only good. She's drawing down the great lights with Kol Yemei Chayah, with all these added, because her life, Malchus's life, is very short in essence. Only 70 years that David HaMelech, who's a feminine soul, was able to receive. But as a result of the sparks of holiness, actually, so it comes out from here that the more she's spending and consuming, the longer she will live. See, happy wife, happy life, and then she'll live long, and then you'll live long. She's bringing all the bracha to the house with the nitzutzik kedusha that she's elevating. The only excuse you can have, in which you can argue on this argument that I'm saying, of why the women have to spend, is you can argue and say that the Rebbe said we finished already all the rectifications and the elevations of spark, so there's no need anymore for consuming. So then I'll answer you, if that's the case, if the days of Mashiach, why you're worried about your bill, then you have infinite, Mashiach will come, there won't be anything anything lacking. So then for sure she can spend literally without a limit. Because that's a time of great wealth. So Mamanashach, you have to decide. If you're living still in the time of Galus and you're still not acknowledging that we finished the world of Birurim, then the more the better. We have to finish the job. We have to elevate sparks. If we're ready in the days of Mashiach, then for sure there's no problem. Okay. Now, but this is where we're holding one nekuda. He brought at the beginning of the Maimer, he brought a passage of the Zohar, where the Zohar says that there's a fundamental difference between benching and davening. In a halacha, what's the halacha? Regarding a drunkard, regarding a shikar. If a shikar is allowed to, if a drunk is allowed to, if a shikar, a drunk, is allowed to make a bracha. So the Zohar says it depends. Benching, an intoxicated and inebriated person is allowed to bench the Birkat Hamazon, the grace after meal. But regarding to davening, that drunkard is forbidden. And the Zohar says because eating, the blessing of eating, is spiritually related to a blessing, to a level where there is eating above as well. And there's eating and there's drinking, which includes the wine as well. He brings interesting that the word v'achalta, you should eat, v'savata is referring to drinking, and particularly wine, because wine brings satisfaction. And the blessing that is associated with that, ubarachtas Hashem Elokecha. Not only does it tolerate eating, it actually is stimulated by the eating. And as we're going to see in today's share, the wine, drinking wine, is the concept of eating and drinking, but in an expansive way, an intensified way. In other words, whatever eating and eating means, it's eating plus. And that's why not only isn't it a problem to be drunk when you're benching, it's actually an enhancement, because I don't mean it's a good thing to be drunk. You shouldn't get drunk. You should, but I'm talking about taking a little bit, having a little alcohol in the system is not a bad thing. For this blessing of Birkas Hamazon. But for Shmona Esrei is called that it is by davening we are rising to a place where there is no eating and drinking. Not even spiritual eating or drinking. Not even eating and drinking in the most sublime level, as we're going to see. And that's why for that it's not okay to eat and drinking, quite on the contrary, is only going to mess things up. For that reason, one should not eat before they daven, and even though we were given the permission to do that today's days, but drinking, which is intense eating, as we're going to see, is not okay for davening. A shikar is not allowed to, an intoxicant can't daven. He's going to lead us into the discussion of Chana, the mother of Shmuel Hanavi, the mother of Samuel, who's in a conversation with Eli HaKohen where she's coming to daven in the Beis HaMikdash, and he mistakes her for a drunkard, and he wants to stop her, and she says, "I'm not drunk." And actually we learn out all the laws of prayer from her. So we're going to see that whole discussion, because in prayer, inebriation is not good. Because the idea of prayer, this is where we're going over here, is he's establishing this is where it's going to connect to what we spoke about in the earlier classes, that there's two types of nourishment, two types of divine flow. One of them bread from the earth and one bread from heaven. Bread from the earth is everything that is stimulated by us elevating sparks of holiness. We elevate things to the world of, and then we bring them up to the world of Tohu, and from the worlds of Tohu, from this infinite intense light, we draw down lights and energy from above. But there's a different type of infusion of sustenance and godly infusion, which has nothing to do with energies with sparks of holiness being elevated. Because these
these infusions of life, these emanations or these projections are purely channeled from above, they're not in reciprocation from below. And our activity, our involvement in them is just to serve as channels. So we will say a blessing, it's not coming as a result of something we're lifting, it's just a hamshacha, it's just a flow. And that's mun, bread from heaven, and the concept of Shemona Esrei, of prayer. And over there, drunkardness is not good. So that's where we're holding now, and that's what he's going to explain. And that's more of a masculine type of a activity, as opposed to a feminine one, which is associated, which we spoke earlier, the blessing of the woman, which means all the elevation from sparks of holiness from below, which enhances the husband as well. This is a hamshacha. Just he's going to explain now that this elevation of sparks of holiness is all associated with bina, and the channels of energy that are flowing from above are associated with chachma. Chachma, wisdom. Bina, understanding. Bina is on the left side, chachma is on the right side. This is chesed, which is a flow like water. It's not coming from below, it's going straight from above, downward. And one is a stimulation from above, below, it's more the element of fire. Okay, and these are the two ideas. Now, let's read inside. So, I'm sorry, it wasn't 358, it was 356. After we explained the concept of the table that is in front of Havaya, which is the idea of Malchus. Havaya is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Ze'er Anpin. The Shulchan that's in front of him is what prepares for the Adam, and he's called Adam. Because Adam is Gematria Havaya. Yud Kei Vav Kei is 26, but if the hidden letters, the Yud has the Vav and the Dalet, the Hey has the Aleph, the Vav has an Aleph and a Vav, and the Hey has, again, a Aleph. Gematria 45, which is Gematria of Ma, which is Gematria of Adam. So that Adam has a table in front of him. The table is all the Nitzutze Kedusha, all the prepared food that have already been extracted and been elevated. The Shekhinah, we begin that process and we send it up, and the angels are all helping. See, this is we set off a whole massive cycle when we elevate these sparks of holiness, and it goes through all these gourmet cooks and all these inspection stations, which have to taste the food, and they have to approve it, that it can continue on going higher and higher and higher and higher and higher and higher, meaning more refined and more refined, until these sparks are ready to be absorbed in Hashem, in the world, in the kelim of Atzilus, of Tikkun. And then once they're elevated there, then they reach down and they draw down the sparks of Tov from above. But it's called the table. And it's called the table of the supernal man, as we said before. So Yeshlav, we need to understand why is this a kapara now? In the time of Golus. Achshav means now that we don't have a Mizbeach, so Shulchan Shel Adam Mechaper, instead of the altar, we have the table. Similar to the Mizbeach, bringing a kapara at the time of the Beis HaMikdash. At first, Yesh Lahavn, Shoirish Inyan Maimer Azaya Deliyel. The root of the idea of the statement of the Zohar, where the Zohar says, Sheyesh Hefresh Bein Tzloisa LeBirchas HaMazon. There's a difference between prayer and grace after meal, between davening, the Amida, and benching. The shikr shara le'levarcha birchas hamazon. A drunkard is allowed to make the blessing of benching, and the reason is mishum the birchas hamazon ba'asar the is be'achila, because benching registers, it impacts, it connects to a place where there is eating. It's loisa and shmona esrei ubasar the leis be'achila, and davening is taking place in a place where there is no food, there's no eating. Alkin shikr usr l'spal. That's why you're drunk, which, as we saying before, is influenced by food, and we'll soon see why. Why dafka the drunk is considered eating boss. Why is he stuck in the food? Why is he stuck in the world of achila? We'll soon see. You can say, because when a person eats, you eat and then you're done eating. But the person who's drunk, the influence of the food continues after you eat. So it's like the food is still in his system. That's true, but there's also something deeper over here. Tehine, for behold, shayrish b'chenes habirurim, the root of the whole idea of birurim, which means of these sparks of holiness, of the refinement that happens when we elevate sparks of holiness. So down here, they're called the ban. They're called the sparks of 52. That's the fallen sparks related to Malchus. That's where she's the one who collects them. But once they're elevated to their source, we said before, it's in the world of Tohu. What's the world of Tohu? It's a primordial world where there was a very intense projection of the divine, but the vessels, the worlds, could not contain the intensity of those lights, and they shattered. Okay, so that world of Tohu, and once they shattered, obviously this was very intense godliness, so it's very holy, very, very, very. But once it shattered, it fell down. Now, but once we elevate the spark, we bring it back to Tohu. That place of Tohu is connected to Hashem's name. It's connected to a certain spiritual order of divine manifestation, which is connected to the name associated with what's called Shem Samach Gimel, Sag. Sag is 63. Samach Gimel, 63. Which 63 is the name that dominated the world of Tohu. How do you get 63? Yud Kei Vav Kei again. It's again God's name of 26, but filled with different filling. Instead of filling it with the milui of aleph, we fill it with yuds, and we keep one aleph there. So let's how does that become? Yud is always 20 because yud is 10, but there's always inside a yud that never changes is a vav and a daled. So vav and daled is another 10. 10 and 10 is 20. The haze of Samach Gimel, 2 haze. In the name Samach Gimel, Hashem's name always has 2 haze. The first hay and the latter hay. And both those hays are filled with yuds. So we got 20, then you have 15, because hay and yud is 15, and another 15. So it's 30 plus 20 is 50. And then you're left with the vav. And the vav is filled with an aleph. So vav, aleph, vav is 13. So 50 plus 13 is 63. That's how you get Samach Gimel. That name of God dominated the world of Tohu. So when you elevate the sparks, you're elevating them to Samach Gimel. Now Samach Gimel is very intense light. When those lights are now drawn down into a person, it brings that fire of B'chol Ma'odecha, that infinite charge, and in the supernal man above, it gives him also this infinite energy, because he is only the name 45, which is already a far more measured life force. So and that's what we say. She feeds him and gives him this koyach through the food that he eats. So, shayrish b'chenes habirurim, b'chenes hagvura is the bina. Now, the birurim is all from the name 63, which is associated with gvura, and in which dimension of gevura? On the left side, we said earlier, left side is gevura, intensity, that's why it's the world of Tohu, which is intense, but the intensity of bina, as opposed to the kindness of chachma. In general, the 4 names of God derived from Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is 52, 45, 63, and 72. 72 is even a higher level, which we'll speak about soon. 72 is even a higher level than the lights of Tohu. But in general, these 4 names of Hashem, 72 also comes out from the Yud Kei Vav Kei, through filling it with. Instead of getting 63, because you fill the Vav with a Yud, you fill it with an Aleph, you fill the Vav. The Yud Kei, the Yud and the Hey stay the same. So you have 50. But then instead of filling the Vav with an Aleph, which gives you 13, you fill it with a Yud. So all of them have Yuds. You fill it with a yud, and then you have 22. So 50 plus 22 is 72. That's the highest name of God. And that represents the Hashem's light before even it started shattering, before the whole tohu, intense, before that happened. So these 4 different names of Hashem are associated like this. Ban, 52, is associated with Malchus, Shechina, which is the source of creation and separation and the way things manifest down here. There's a mixture of good and bad and so on and so forth. The results of the shattered world, that's in Ban. Then Ma is the rectified world of Tikkun, the root of our souls and of everything holy and godly, the good, what's purely innately good, and Batal to Hashem. The intensity, that's associated with the Ze'er Anpin, with the 6 emotions, called Adam. And then Bina, which is higher than the Ze'er Anpin, is associated with 76. With 63. Shem Sag is in Bina. And we know that the main Shviras HaKelim was in the Zayin Tatoyin of Bina. In the 7 lower Sefirot of Bina, that's where the shattering of the vessels took place, in the world of Tohu. So it's a very strongly, it's attributed to Bina. It's not the discussion now, the relationship of Bina to that shattering. But that's the way it is. The shattering takes place in Bina. That's the world, and that's where the Tohu is, the intensity is in Bina. And then higher than that is Chachma, where in Chachma is associated with 72, which is higher than Tohu and Tikkun. Tikkun is 45, Tohu is 63, and Ayin Beis is higher than the whole realm of Tohu and Tikkun. And that's what I mentioned earlier, is where we're tapping when we're davening Shemona Esrei. We're bringing down bread from heaven, energies from Chachma, from beyond this entire game of shattered and rectification, from beyond all of that. And that's the other type of nourishment that we're privy to, that God has given us an ability to access. But over there, we don't have to fix anything to draw it down. We just have to be silent and channel and allow that light to come down through us. And that's not coming from food. And that's why, as we're going to see, the drunk can't do that. Okay, so he says, the root of the birurim, is the bina. It's from the intensity of bina. Now he's going to show you now how the birur of food relates to bina. Where do you see the birur of the food that you're eating, the sparks of holiness associated with bina? Because how does a spark get elevated? Spark gets elevated, he explained early in the Maimer. Initially, as I mentioned earlier, as this item of clothing is still in Nordstrom's or wherever it is, it belongs to the klipa. Why does it belong to the klipa? Because nothing godly about it. And who says it's going to be used in the service of God? Someone else might pick up this pair of shoes and use it just to beautify themselves for no higher godly purpose, just for some Hollywood show, right? Or whatever, to go to a party that has zero to do with anything godly and spiritual in this world. But now the Jewish woman is coming and buying those shoes and going to use it. She's going to go to shul with it. She's going to do mitzvahs with it. It's going to become part of the integration of holiness. But look, that's with shoes. Now let's talk about food, because the main birurim, as we said before, happens through food. When you take the food and you eat it, and then that food becomes part of food that you eat, food is converted into energy. And that energy energizes your prayer. Now, how does food turn into energy? Because it goes into your blood. A person constantly needs to replenish their blood. You don't eat, you get less blood. The food becomes blood, and our life is in our blood. When the food turns into blood, and the best of the blood is the blood. I mean, obviously, all the blood goes through the heart, but then there's like the refined blood, the cleanest of the clean, purest of the. What's the heart? The heart is the symbol for emotions and excitement. Blood, hot. Blood represents excitement. It's where you get excited about God. It reached its peak of its elevation. From being a while ago, this was a cow, which had all the passions of a cow, or a chicken that had all the passions of a chicken and all the ideals of a chicken, and now it became human blood that's burning up for God. That's its elevation. When you're saying V'ahavtas Hashem Elokecha, love God your God, you're feeling literally a feeling of excitement in your heart, or a gush of adrenaline. That's real davening. You feel something. You feel the passion. You feel the fervor. It literally came from the food, but now it became blood in the heart. Now we know there is a rule called what excites the heart. Why did the heart get excited? Okay, the substance is the blood, but what's exciting the blood? Why is the heart in a turned on state? It's because of the bina. Bina liba. Bina extends into the heart. So the bina turns on the tornado in the heart. It turns on the engine of the heart. What does that mean? If you're just opening a siddur and mumbling words, you're not excited at all about God. But if you learned a mimer, you learned a discourse, and then you meditated and you understood it well, and you meditated and meditated and meditated, and you get the awesomeness of Hashem, the awesomeness of God, the awesomeness of Hashem creating the world or whatever it is, and you're meditating on it, then your heart will get on fire. So from the bina excites the heart, and that's the destination of the spark. That means that the spark went back up to bina, which, as we said before, is the power of samach gimel. As it happens in our human heart below, it parallels in the spiritual worlds. The soul of that spark, the soul of that food, goes up higher and higher and higher from Malchus. It goes into the supernal man above, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it goes into his heart, and it creates a fire in him. From what? What turns on that fire? From the bina. Because the supernal man also has that bina, and that's that infinite excitement that's taking place and drawing down upon this intense energy of the world of Tohu, intensifying his life and our life below. As it is, can be seen, the marshal, the metaphor from the purification of a food item. Where we say that there is no blade of grass that doesn't have a mazel. So what happens? The food gets converted to blood, bekaved in the liver. Then it becomes the best of the blood. A revius is a quarter of a certain measure, quarter of a lug. Mufchar, that becomes the best. In the left ventricle of the heart, kidu, as it is known. V'yadu, it is known. Sheslavas ava belev, the excitement of love that's in the heart. Berish be'esha chuka, and the flaming flames of fire. Hachuka, of the longing. B'yoser, it's very intense. B'pchinas tzimoin, in a manner of thirst and longing, where the heart is ablaze with intense longing for God. Comes, the heart gets excited when you're contemplating, and there's different levels of contemplation. There is, ordinary contemplation, and then there's a joyous contemplation. Like we know on Yom Tov, for instance, it's the time where we're in a state of joy. Contemplation is very, very, very appropriate and very conducive on Yom Tov, because Yom Tov in general, it's the energy of Bina. God is revealing himself in the attribute of Bina. So our Bina element on Yom Tov, it's called Ma'adim L'Simcha, is very intense, and when there is, and it brings joy, Eim Abanim Samecha, Bina brings happiness, and that happiness increases the love tenfold. So the bina is associated with excitement and simcha and joy, which all creates, like the tea kettle, the bubbling kettle, the bubbling of the heart. In this case, it's the blood of the heart to bubble, to go on fire. With joy. Like it says, the mother of the children, which is Bina, Samecha, is happy, and she causes joy in the heart. Shespilas eslavos, because the excitement of the movement of this excitement of this fire, by simcha v'ched v'gluya b'lev, or joy, and and gladness that's revealed in the heart, it all comes through the contemplation of bina. Because bina, even though bina is one of the intellectual faculties, it extends into the heart. Because the bina reveals itself in the heart, in the left side of the heart. Last week we learned that there's an inyan of heart, batach ba'leiv ba'ilo. There's an inyan of heart that's related to chachma, because leiv is gematria 32, and that's related to the descent of the 32 paths of chachma into the heart. So there is an inyan in leiv, but that's the right side of the heart. The left side of the heart is primarily impacted by the left side of the mind, of the brain, which is bina. Where the excitement takes place. The revelation is a revealed gladness, or yespilus, yeslavos, or an excitement of fiery passion, fiery love. The sibas hayeslavos, and the reason, now, in order for something to go on fire, there has to be fuel, which means there has to be something that's consumable, something has to burn. So the fuel is the bina, the understanding. That's the kerosene. But the actual, you have to have wood there too. You have to have something there. That's the blood. And where do you get the blood? And the blood has to be combustual, right? It has to be something. And that comes from the blood, comes from the food you eat. And since those food are dynamite, because in the food is these sparks of holiness. So when you take the bina liba, the understanding, and you ignite that spark, bang, it goes on fire, and it's you say, it's Yom Tov in the Vach, and it's Yom Tov. That's what Yom Tov. The sibas islav is bom in Adam rivia shabalev, from the blood that's in the heart. Ham is barer men amaychel, that becomes purified and extracted from the food. The nimtza comes out of ezebchenes bitter vahala midam shabalev. So this is the birur, this is the rectification and elevation from the blood of the heart. Because in the heart is enclosed in it in this blood is enclosed the revelation of gladness, or yespilus eslava, so the excitement of this passion, and very, very intensely from the bina, from the expansiveness that's happening in the mind, which is translating into the excitement of the heart. Because, and he's proving that it's very strongly related to the blood, because anybody whose heart is turned on, very thirsty, beslavus, with passion, with the simcha geluya biyoser, and a very revealed love, meaning it's not just a potential love, but it's actually pumping. I'm sorry, not love, joy. He can actually feel it. He wants to dance and jump and sing, and you got that. Like a Barditchev davening. Imagine Rebbe Levi Yitzchak of Barditchev, fire of a, looks like a madman. It's because there's a lot of chayos, there's a lot to bubble. But that's going up in the heart from the food. And the proof is, if you didn't eat, and your heart is very exhausted, and you feel literally without any life, so you can meditate from today till tomorrow, the heart won't respond. There won't be excitement. You needed to have breakfast. You needed to have, or food from the day before. You need to have blood in the heart to be able to excite it. From a diminishment in nutrition and food, you will not have the hispilus of simcha, of joy, and the excitement from bina of the heart. Kolkach. Can you do as it is known? And that's physically that way, because you don't have the blood. Spiritually also, you don't have the sparks. Like Rab Nachman said, I couldn't answer you without, and it's explained in Chassidus, it's the passion, the fire, the b'chavas Hashem b'chol ma'oitcha that comes from the food that we eat. This is the idea of birudim, the machol of food, ba'ava with love, b'mesiris nefesh b'kriyas Shema, which reaches its peak by the Shema. Because even though we're talking about, again, mainly by Birchas Hamazon, but in davening also, there is a part of davening where the main part of the davening is this excitement. And for that excitement, that part of davening is okay to have food. Quite on the contrary, it is enhanced by food. When we say davening is not a place of food, we mean primarily the experience of Shmona Esrei, which is a higher, you're in a complete different channel. when you're doing Shemona Esrei, as we're going to see soon. But this is during Kriya Shema, which is more of an idea of excitement and passion, which very much is associated with blood, with the power of Bina, which is Ba'amre va'afta, when you say you should love, Aidei Yizbaininus, and how do you create the love of va'afta you should love? That has to first be a contemplation. And the contemplation primarily has to be a full-fledged understanding, not just a Bina experience. And associated with today, Mittler Rebbe, who's Bina, understanding, not just Chachma, not just a vague, distant understanding of something godly. You won't really get excited about it because it's too distant from you. It has to be fully processed, fully integrated into the Bina. Ayidei Yizbaininus, the Yechudi Allah, can you do it? Answer is no. So he says, is also the idea of Birchas Hamazon, of benching. Because the root of benching, basar the izbei achila, is in the place where there is eating, in the level where there is food. When do you Birchas Hamazon? You're reacting to the table. You ate. Where do you eat? By a table. So the Birchas Hamazon is the blessing that is triggered from the eating, from the table. Now, shulchan is what we say earlier. Shulchan is that power. The power of malchus is called shulchan. The power of shechina that goes down to extract the spark. That's feminine element. That's the table. Is this shulchan that's in front of Hashem, the shulchan that was in the temple, that was in the on the northern side of the which is that's where the birurim take place. These elevations take place. As we said earlier, va'achila, and eating is this idea of separation. Why eating is separation? Because first of all, as we spoke last week, when you eat, you're supposed to make sure. First of all, it's to separate. There's a whole process just to make it fit for human. Is already a process of food. Separating good from bad, even if it's not a Jewish eating, just fit for human, food has to be removed, the bad stuff, and then eating itself, the physical act of eating is the body does a purification and extracts the vitamins, the nutritions, the good stuff and the bad stuff go out. Especially Jewish eating, which you have to go through a purification of kashrut, a whole screening process to make it kosher. When it's kosher, when it's not kosher. And then there is another screening, a more sensitive screening that's supposed to be taking place, and a discrimination of, do I really need to eat this or not? And what's my purpose in eating? I should eat because, as Rambam says, to be strong, to be able to serve God. Also, all of this is all purifications. It's all separations, the bad of it, the good of it. And then you say a blessing, you extract that spark. It's elevated, it's birudim, and then it's elevated. Then it becomes combustible material in the heart that when you'll meditate, the heart will go on fire. And now this will also explain why a drunk is allowed to bench. That's why the shikr is also permitted. An inebriated person is permitted to bench. What's the idea of the shikr? From wine, it means, when you drink alcohol, what does alcohol do? Alcohol causes your blood to go on steroids. That's the idea. It intensifies the blood. And it intensifies the emotions. That's why, you don't want to tick off someone that's drunk, because their anger, their rage is very dangerous. But their love can also be very intense. All their emotions are in a state of expansion. Bina liba. And that's why we know wine is associated with Bina. Yom Tov, you're supposed to drink wine, dafka. Because Yom Tov is the energy of Bina. It's a mitzvah of simcha, simchas yayin, bebasar v'yayin. Meat and wine. Meat is also from red. Meat is also red. It's also Bina. Bones are chachma. Meat is Bina. And it represents all this avodah of eslavos, of excitement, of fervor, of passion. That's why wine is an enhancement to all of this. His blood became impassioned. It became excited. From the intensity of the wine. Habayr that's burning in him. That makes the soul be in a state of excitement and revelation, of happiness and joy. Joy is also an opening up, an expansion. The soul is in an expansive, intense state. Because wine opens you up. When wine goes in, secrets come out. Right? So the idea of wine is that it releases the energy in all directions. As we can see clearly to the eye, that you give someone to drink a little bit and you get secrets out of them. Because they're more in a relaxed, open state. And they drink a lot, it's not relaxed, it's intense, but it's like v'chedvasai, and their joy, begiloi, in a revealed way, v'slavos rishpeish, and the passions of the flames of fire. Ki b'chenas bina, because bina, b'chenas alma deis gali, is the revealed world. It's an interesting idea. He brings it over here. Bina is called the revealed world. When usually we say Malchus is Alma Des Galia. Bina, and which is the part of the Vavke, and Bina is part of the Yudke, which is called Alma Des Kasi, the concealed world. So I guess the way he brings it over here to look at my Mare Admar Azak in Ksuvim Chelik Beis. I didn't get a chance to look that up, but the way I understand it is compared to Chachma, Bina is called Alma Des Galia because Chachma is a closed point. Bina is already an expansive state. So, for example, Chachma is symbolized with a Yud. A Yud is a tiny dot. And the Hey, and Bina is symbolized with a Hey. A Hey is that dot opened up. That dot expanded horizontally and vertically, which creates a full space. That's in that sense, it's called Alma Dis Galia compared to Chachma, which is a closed point. That's the idea of the woman versus the man. The man gives a point, and the woman creates a full revealed child out of it. So that's the idea of Alma Des Galia. Kanal be'inyan Bina Liba, which is the idea of Bina Liba. Bina is the heart. Okay, that's why Leah, this week's parasha, Leah represents the power of Bina. She gives birth, she reveals, she opens up her 6 boys. Her 6 boys are the 6 emotions. When wine goes in, secrets go out. The concealed goes to revelation. Because wine is Bina. Bina, kanal. And it's associated with, as we said before, what's the root of the birurim? The root of the birurim is to go back to the intense lights of tohu, and the intense lights of tohu are associated with bina. The name 63, which is associated with, again, a very high level of bina as it is in olam hatohu, but still is nevertheless associated with bina. So the sparks of holiness, as we explained, go up to the heart. From there, they attach themselves to the source in tow and bring down this great revelation from above. And this is what it says: her flames are the flames of fire. Shalheves Yudke, the flames of Yudke. V'amru bezoyar, and the Zoyar says, "Dainu begalusa dafka in exile." So here I'm going to have a little bit of a problem, I have to say, in which I seem to have a contradiction in the Maimer in these words. Mamish in these words, which says, in Golos Dafka. Which I haven't resolved, and maybe it will resolve itself when we're learning now, and maybe someone will help me when you'll try to figure it out, crack it open, I don't know. He's going to differentiate over here very strongly between this type of nourishment, the Bina experience, the Bina exercise, sparks being elevated and drawing down revelations from above, elevating sparks, and a service that's associated more with Bittul, not with elevating a spark, but just with channeling light from above, and that type of an avodah that does not involve a noisy, fiery passion. It involves a complete suspension of self, a state of complete bittul. This type of a feeling is a very much a passion, a fire. You feel yourself and you feel your desire. So you can explain. The question is, which one is shaykh, which avodah is shaykh to the time of the Beis HaMikdash, and which avodah is shaykh to the time of Golus? On the one hand, we would say that in the Beis HaMikdash, since you were able to come into the temple and experience the divine, it brought a person to a higher state of bittul, nullification. Like when Chana was in the Beis HaMikdash, she was told not to drink wine. There's no wine permitted in the temple. State of bittul, silence, channeling. The idea of the fiery service, rishpe eis, he says over here, begalusa dafke, is in Golus. Why? Because the main idea that Malchus goes down, that we the Jewish people, for instance, go down into the world to elevate sparks of holiness, is dafka in the time of Golus. In the time of the Beis HaMikdash, we were not so exposed to all these sparks. We're living with some kind of, it's like Malchus, the Shechina, in the world of Atzilus. We're in Eretz Yisrael, we're in the world of holiness. We're not so engaged in sparks of holiness. It's only in Golus, when we go out, this represents the concept of Shechina going down to the lower worlds to extract sparks. Then, with these sparks, we get excitement and all that Indian. I would say that that's what it is. That would make sense. But later, he mentions a few statements that seem to contradict the dafka in Golus. The birurim that are there are ones of bittul, of chachma, not of bina. So, and again, I was thinking that we have to make a tikkun over here maybe, but then I'm thinking it makes more sense now that this, because in the end he seems to go back to what he's saying over here. So I don't have clarity. For now, let's learn it this way: that the flames of fire, since they're coming from the sparks of holiness that we're elevating, rishpe for fire, which has to do with sparks that are coming from the outside. So it's something that is more shaykh to the avodah, it's more applicable to the service of the Jew during the time of Golus. Because during the time of exile is when Malchus is primarily engaged and involved in the birurim, in the rectifications of spark of holiness. Shahabirurim, which these birurim, sharsham b'pchenas bina liba, these birurim, their shoresh, where is in the bina of the heart. Alkei nikra shalheves, that's why it's called shalheves. From where? Shalheves yudkei, where the emphasis is not so much the K, the yud, the emphasis is the hey, shalheves, the flames that are coming from the hey, which is they're coming from bina, which is what we're tapping, what we're stimulating, because as a result of our feminine type of service of these extraction of sparks. Canal be'inyan asimcha de bina belev, like Kniskalel, as we said earlier, be'inyan asimcha de bina, which is the joy of the bina of the heart, behis galus, which is revealed, behis galus ahelim, when what is concealed becomes revealed, ubehis slavos rishpeish, and with the passion of flames of fire. Which come as a result of the conversion of food, ledam to blood, and this becomes this pint of blood, or whatever you call it, the revius of blood in the heart. That's why also the drunk is not disqualified from benching in this, which means to take part in this activity of this exercise of elevating sparks, because that's what it is. We want the excitement, and the drunkard is in this excited state. This is all an experience of a loud kind of a service, which is gevura. It's stormy, it's fiery. Because wine is rooted in bina, which is the source of these birurim, of these rectifications. Tzloisa, that this is all the idea of Birchas Hamazon, which is called the place of eating. Which again, the inyan of eating is sparks of holiness that we're bringing up to the world of Tohu, and from there we're drawing down. Which that's an exercise of Bina, and it's the birur of the shulchan, of the table. And that's why the sages, and what also makes sense, they say that the Bisman Hazeh, which is in the time of Galus, when we don't have a Mizbeach, so we do the birur through the shulchan. You can explain later in the Maimer that the Mizbeach is also an elevation of sparks, but not one that lands in the heart. And as a result of that, creates this passion and excitement and fire, but an extraction of a spark that's immediately overwhelmed by the powerful lights of godly revelation, in which the spark is silenced in this revelation from above. So it's not expressing its yearning of integration with God, but rather it's just canceled. It's canceled by the revelation, by the godly lights from above that are way beyond it. And it doesn't even allow for an excitement. It's like a person who doesn't have a chance even to get excited when they're coming to see the king, because the king just appeared in front of them, and that just knocks their socks off, and they can't even open their mouth. They're just speechless. That's the idea of Mizbeach, which is more, it's a different type of, it's not the birur of the Shulchan, the birur of the Mizbeach. So in that sense, it would make sense to say that in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, the birurim was more a birur of Chachma, not so much a birur of Bina. In the time of Golus, we have more of a Bina, a birur of Shulchan, which is more of a, but again, as I mentioned over here, it seems to be, there's an explicit statement to the opposite right now in the beginning over here, which I'm confused with. But okay, I hope Hashem will clarify. Ach tzloisa, however, davening basar delays by achila. Davening is in the place where there's no eating. What does that mean? Alkin shikr asal isbal. That's why shikr, a drunk, who's in a state, he's in a state of excitement and expansiveness and a bubbling of blood, he can't daven, because davening is an expansion of chachma energy, koyach ma bittul, and not the bina, and not on. When we say davening, we mean shmona esrei. The hine, for behold, b'chana ksiv, by Chana, who is the one we learn out all the laws of davening. By Chana it says, Sha'amala Eli rebuked her, and he said to her, at Masai Tishtakra, how long will you be drunkard? Hasirias Yenoch, remove your wine from you. Shehu Pchenas Bina. Remove your wine, which is the idea of Bina. Get rid of the Bina. Shanikra. Wine is called Bina. And this is associated with Chana. Chana is associated with wine. The reason he accused her of wine, thinking she's drunk, because the level of Chana is Bina, and she should have a flask of wine on her all the time, because wine is in Bina. That's why he accused her of being drunk. Why is Chana Bina? So Shmuel, her son, represents the 6 midos. Shmuel is the Ze'er Anpin, the 6 emotions. Maybe that's the reason why he's the one who anoints Malchus, David HaMelech, because David HaMelech is Malchus. He's the husband of Malchus. Chana is the exact numeric value of 63. Nun Hey, 55, plus Ches, 55 plus 8, 63. And we said earlier, 63 is in Bina. Shenikra Chana begamatria Sag de Bina. She is gematria of Samach Gimel. She's Chana's mother, because like Bina is the mother of the 6 emotions. So Chana is kind of the same level as Leah. Leah is also Bina. Who's her husband? Who's Chana's husband? His name is Elkanah. Elkanah comes from 2 words, kale, kana. That's the husband of Bina is Chachma. The pasuk says, Knei Chachma, acquire Chachma. Kana what? Kale. Kale is Chachma. The name of God in Chachma is Kale. One of the names, or one of the levels that Kale represents is Chachma. So Kale, Kana, is Knei Chachma, acquire Chachma. His wife is Chana, which is 63, which is Bina. Velkana b'chinas Knei Chachma, the Kale Kiyadua. V'hainu b'zman ha'golus. So now in the time of exile, here's where my question is, Shenikra shikoires v'loy miyai. When she is called drunk, but not from wine. So he tells her, remove your wine. But didn't we say earlier that in the time of Golus, the avodah is the avodah of wine? Here's where I'm just a little confused. So I would say, okay, but he repeats this same idea in a moment. That in Golos the avoda is not bina. Avoda's, I don't know. Veshiva lechana, Chana says to him, Isha kshas ruach anoichi. I'm a woman. I'm very pained. V'yayin v'sheicha lo yishasisi. I have not drinking wine. Kihine, for behold, b'chenes habirurim shebizman hagolos, the birurim, the rectifications that happen in the time of Golos, whom b'chenes hachachma is from chachma, not from bina. Ki b'chachma is biriru. Because the power of birurim really stems from chachma, because chachma does the birur. V'achachma b'chenes habitl. And chachma is not excitement, fervor, passion, which is called yesh, something. Chachma is koyach ma, the power of bittul. B'chenes ma, which is the power of 45, the power of bittul. Shelamayla b'chenes gilui hargashas hispailos simcha, which this ma is higher than the excitements of samach gimel of why? Because that's yesh. Even the word samach gimel, if you turn it around, you get the word gas. Gas means dense. To feel yourself, to be excited about, you have to have an eye. You have to have a sense of self. Chachma is that there is so overtaken by godly truth that you lose your existence completely, total bittul. And we know that the experience of Chachma is on a much higher level than Bina, like we discussed in many Maimarim, the difference between Shabbos and Yom Tov. Shabbos is the energies of Shabbos are the energies of Chachma. That's why Shabbos is not a time of Simcha. Shabbos is a time of bittul. Pleasure, yeah, but not simcha. Simcha is more of a Yom Tov experience associated with Oiros Te'ema, the lights of Mother. V'eslavos belev ki yadua. It's higher than the excitement of joy and passion of the heart, as it is known. V'zeu shanemar, and again, he says that that's the birurim b'zman hagalos. So this is where he's confusing me. V'zeu shanemar b'chana, and that's why it says by Chana, even though her level be'etzem, her essential level is the level of Bina, she is Samach Gimel, yet it says that now, she says, I'm not drunk. And what does it say? V'chana, even though Bina liba, Bina is the heart, which heart means passion. The Pasuk says an interesting statement. It says, V'chana hi medaberes al liba. Chana is speaking upon her heart. What does that mean? The words, it says, Chana medaberes bil liba. She's speaking in her heart. It doesn't say that. She's speaking al liba. Al liba means above her heart. That means Chana was now elevating herself to a place beyond the Bina liba, beyond the experiences of Bina, to a level of Chachma that's not liba. Her heart is Bina liba. That's her heart. A level of passion. She's transcending passion. She's higher than the idea of Bina liba, of Bina her heart, Tanis Galiel. She's davening Shmona Esrei now, so she's going higher than her heart. It's like we daven Shema, then we're experiencing Bina, V'haftas Hashem Elokecha, B'chol levavcha, the love of the heart, Bina liba. And then you get to Shmona Esrei, Hashem Sfasei Tiftach, you can't even talk. Shema is supposed to be a noisy experience, an explosive experience, a fiery experience. Shmona Esrei, silence. That's V'chana medaberes al liba, on the heart. V'chana medaberes al liba, perish l'maylam b'chenes bina liba now. D'hainu l'maylam b'chenes tagburis ava b'leiv. More and higher and above the intensification of a love in the heart. B'rish be'esh, in the flames of fire. Chulu. Ella b'chenes espailos habitl. It's you're worked up, but not worked up with feeling your passion, but worked up with bittul. Espailos habitl b'metzias. A different type of an excitement that cancels you completely, of chachma, which is koyachma. Shebemoyach chachma, which is stems and activate. It's rooted in the moach, in the brain, on the right side of the brain of chachma, which is the opposite of fire. Fire is gvura, intensity. It's water. It's cool. It what cools you down. It what stifles the passion. It's the element of water, kar, that is cold, velach, and moist, b'chenes kridus. the idea of silence, which is coldness, because you're silent. But this is not a silent because you're just unpassionate, because you're chas v'shalom dead. This is surpassing excitement. This is getting so close to something awesome that you can't even be passionate about it because it cancels you completely and you're just nullified by it. That's what we're talking about. This is a level that's beyond feeling. You don't feel anymore. It's not even called a midah, an emotion, so it's not in the heart. Like the midos, the emotions of the heart. There's all something that you feel, and this is al liba, on the heart. This is what it says, al liba, on the heart. Beyond the midos of the heart. Which isn't the case of the moach, of the brain, of bina, which from it come the excitement of the midos shebalev. Bina is the source from where the midos of the heart, the fire of the heart, is actually fired up by. And that moach, hucham, is the left side of the brain, is warm, the yavish and dry, elements of fire. V'sharshay bedamu anefesh, and it's rooted in the blood, which is again red, fiery. Shehu mebchenes gevurais, which is the element of gevurais, Yesod Eish, the element of fire. Kidu mavur b'makam achar is explained elsewhere. Remember, we learned many times that this is the source of the Levites, are on the left side, bina, passion, fire, singing, and longing, and the right side is the Kohanim, silence, bittul. And we've learned elsewhere that the source of moisture, of water, is in the brain of Chachma. And from there, makar hachasadim, and that's the root of the energies of kindness. And the source of heat, of the heart, of the emotions, is in the brain of Bina. The Bina Liba, which Bina is the heart, Kinel, and that's why it also says by Chana, when it's speaking about that she transcended her heart, she transcended her excitement. Gamkein, it says, her lips were moving. There is no, she's silent. Her voice is not being heard. Because when you sense an excitement that's felt in the heart, bihislavos, with passion, mashmiya koil, causes noise. Because you're burning up and you're expressing it, and you can't contain it, and you're singing, you're crying out, you're fired up. A person is drunk also, they're noisy. A noisy party is because people drank. It opens everybody up and causes a lot of noise. Mashmiya koil hevel alev, the excitement, the koil sound comes from the hevel, comes from the breath of the heart. Berish be'esh, with flames of fire, verash, and a tumult and a noise. Like it says regarding certain angels called the Ophanim angels, the wheel angels, they're berash gadol, they make a big commotion. And it also says Zayas and Shalchayas, or even the Malachim that are higher than the Ophanim, also are serving God with Bina Liba, with their passion, with their excitement. And that's why it says they're sweating buckets, the Zayah, the sweating comes from heat. They're overheated, these supernal beasts. Because the intensity of the passion of flames of fire, chukasam of their longing. The bittul, but the excitement of bittul, when it's a different type of an excitement, he's saying he doesn't call it non-excitement. It is excitement because you're moved by something, but it's one that one of bittul. Is when you don't feel yourself at all, mikol v'kol, at all. Because you're not hearing about something from a distance that you can get excited about it. You're up and close. It's right in front of you. And that shocks you, overwhelms you, doesn't allow you to have any excitement. Through chachma, as it is known. Over there, it's the opposite. You can't raise even a peep. You're so silent. But only very, very silently. If you're saying anything, it is in a whisper. Because you don't even feel yourself because of the intensity of the bittul. The gam koil of this abnegation. The gam koil apnimi shebelev, and even not the vocal noise, the vocal cords, the vocal sounds, even the the inside crying of the heart, loy mishtama, is not felt, is not heard. Or murgish kal, you don't even feel it. Even though there is an excitement, you don't feel it because you're overwhelmed by whatever. As stated elsewhere. And that's why it says, her voice was not heard at all. Because Chana was then in a state of prayer, in a state of chachma, of bittul. Noise, her lips were moving. Gam hein bilti argasho bechira. And even that her lips were moving, wasn't that she was saying because she consciously chose to speak, she was being spoken through. Like we say by davening, Hashem sfasai tiftach, open my lips. My lips are moving involuntarily because I'm just channeling. It's like a prophet who's channeling. They're not saying what they want to say. There's something being spoken through them. And that's the idea of of speech of Shemona Esrei, and that happened by Chana. There's the idea of Shemona Esrei, of davening. That's called tzloisa, it's called davening in silence. That anybody that davens loud, it's not only you shouldn't disturb your next door neighbor, you don't daven loud, because the whole idea of davening is being muted by God. Whoever davens loud, it says they have little. They're from those that have minimal faith. So what does that mean? They have minimal faith. So simply, it's because you think God doesn't hear you. You have to scream. Quiet, God hears you. That's the simplest. Yeah, the fact that is lacking in faith. But the deeper meaning over here, it means that they're not on the higher level, on the more expansive, higher level of chachma. They're not experiencing this higher level of chachma, which brings bittul. They're still distant, and bina compared to chachma is called small. The aim of the narrow mochin of mother of bina compared to a much deeper, higher experience, which is called gadlos hamoichin of chachma. A person is obviously not in that state. That's why they're making noise. Canal. And that's why it says that there are, he doesn't say it over here, that there are malachim called srafim, and they're silent angels. They're not like the Oifanim and the Chayos HaKodesh that make a ruckus. They're very silent because they are in this state of chachma. They're quietly burning. They're burning up, but very quietly. There's no noise in their burning. And even to speak in a way that you hear yourself, even that's no good. The Gemara says, Yachol Yashmiya, you would think you should hear yourself what you're saying. So it brings a pasuk that even that you should not hear. Halacha is not that way. The halacha is that you could speak Shemona Esrei in a way that you hear yourself. But, that's what he brings over here on the bottom. But still, the Gemara at least entertains an opinion that you shouldn't even, that the bittul has to be so strong that you shouldn't even hear yourself talking, even the whisper. And he explains it, because even speaking silently, that you yourself hear, is an indication that one is not in a state of absolute and complete bittul, where there is no feeling and there's no choice at all. No chosen words. God, you open my mouth. You open my lips. Stated elsewhere. And the reason for that is because the root of davening is birurim. It's also an elevation, but it's not where your final destination of these sparks are in the heart to create this massive fire in the heart, but their final destination of these sparks is to go into chachma and be canceled by the chachma and completely integrate. Now in the bottom he brings, or not here, he led me to an Oyer HaTorah that's Tzemach Tzedek, where over there he brings the idea of that the difference between the two is the difference between the bitter of ban and the bitter of man and the bitter of mad. Bitter of ban means the bitter of of man is Maya Nuk from feminine waters. The feminine experience, which is Malchus and Bina, is a noisy experience, one that feels more oneself. Fire, like the woman has passion and fire. Her longing for her husband is a passionate one, a fiery one. And then there is the other idea, and which is the bitter of Mad, it's called masculine waters, in which he receives the spark and integrates it. And in that sense, it's overwhelmed by the powerful revelations coming from above. It's a difference which is explained in Chassidus between Yosef and the Shvatim. The in 2 weeks from now, we're going to read how the brothers are out there. They're all sheaving sheaves. So there's a very geschmacka mimer from the Alter Rebbe called V'hinei Anachnu Ma'almim Alumim in Torah Or, where he explains how all the sheaves that they were sheaving, which the idea of sheaving sheaves means to making bundles, collecting sparks of holiness. After they finished making their sheaves, all those sheaves bow down to Joseph. And the reason for that is because Yosef was on a higher level. He was in the level of Shmona Esrei. He was in the level of, he took the sparks that they elevated into the bina, into the left side of the heart. That was an excitable state. The very fact that it's excited means that it's still not unified, because if it's unified, it wouldn't be excited. And he has to take those sparks and zap them, so to speak, tase them, so to speak, with his light. And by doing that, they're suddenly silent because they're shocked with the revelation of pure divinity, which is coming from Yosef. So this is the same idea. There's a birur as it's primarily connected to bina, and there is a birur that's more a birur of chachma. And that's why it says, this week's parsha, I mentioned to you that would be psukim from this parsha. Here's the first one. When Leah is having children, so she has Ruvain, and Ruvain represents one part of davening, as it's explained in Chassidus. The first parsha of the Shema, V'ahavta, Ruvain is on the right, is represents love. Shimon represents fear. The second parsha of Ahoyim Shemoah, the Alter Rebbe in this week's, in Parshas Vayechi, is a mimer, Ruvain, Yehuda Ata, Yeducha Checha, your brothers are going to praise you. So there the Alter explains, the Ruvain and Shimon and Levi are all noisy. It's the avoda that has to do with different parts of davening. Riyah, Shmiya, and then Levi attachment. But it's all still part of the noisy part. Then comes Yehuda and Yehuda Shmona Esrei. Because Yehuda means submission. I have no voice, silent. God, you'll speak through me. And that's why it says by Leah this week in the parsha that when Yehuda was born, Vatamod, she stopped giving birth. She stopped revealing. Because the idea of having children means that her emotions were being stimulated, were being revealed. The emotions were coming out. Each child represented an emotion coming from concealment to revelation. What happens when you're drinking? Drink another cup, another one of your feelings come out. The emotions expand. When you get to Yehuda, which is the idea of accelerating to a much higher level of bittul, that's why Yehuda is such a powerful neshama of Mashiach and so on and so forth, because of this level of bittul. So what happens then, Vatamoid, Tamid means Amida, like Bashmon Esrei, we stand. And there's no emotions taking place because you're beyond emotions. The Tamid Miled is Yehuda Shubchenes Hayda. This is the level of Hayda, of bittul, of surrender, Bashmon Esrei, at Shmona Esrei. Like it says, Apam Oida Es Hashem. Now I will admit to God, I will surrender to God. I think it means I will thank God. But Yehuda, I'm sorry, as it says in Divrei Hayamim, in Chronicles, whenever in the Torah it mentions Yehuda with a malupim, Yehuda, which is hard, it doesn't really say so much the idea of hoidah, thanks, of acknowledgement. But in Divrei Hayamim, it pronounces Yehuda Yehuda, which it clearly is saying that Yehuda is hoidah, surrender. Yehuda b'chaylim tamidis, k'mashakasav. Now, k'mashakasav, like it says, Elokim al damilach. Elokim, don't be silent. Leman yezar mercha chavoid v'lo yidaim, so that kavod will sing and will not be silent. So I have no idea why he brings these verses. The only thing you get over here is the 2 verses suddenly that explain the concept where there is the avodah of Malchus, that Malchus is not silent, that the Shechina is noisy. Elokim al damilach, do not be silent. Boil, cry out like Rachel's crying for her children. Or Laman Yezamercha Chavoid, that Kavod Malchus will sing, V'lo Yidam, will not be silent. Here he's saying the opposite. Silence. V'tamoid miledis. Yes, hoidah, quiet. So I don't know why he brings these 2 psukim. No clue. There's a few things over here that I just don't, I don't connect. Maybe that's a sign that I don't understand anything he's saying going here. I hope not, but this is like jarring out. Masha, because of it, Tamoid Miledes, and this that it says that she stopped giving birth. The bittul of chachma, that is silence. Silence is which is higher than the excitement of the midos. Shenikra told is the bina, which is called the birth of bina. Aim habanim, the mother of the children, ki yadu, as it is known. But the angels, we also have that. There are times when they flap their wings and they make a lot of noise, and then there is a time when that's when they're flying, and then there's a time, or when they're surging forward. Then there's a time when ba'amdam, they stop, they halt, and they let their wings go. That's the idea that they're overwhelmed by the powerful, what they came close to suddenly is revealed to them, and it freezes them, and it knocks their wings down, which means they can't move forward. They can't feel their desire because they're just. They let their wings down. This is the standing of Shmoyne Esrei, bittul legamri, complete bittul. Stated elsewhere. If you're silent, then you be silent completely, be muted. Why are you saying words by Shmoyne Esrei? So you are talking. We said earlier that the talking of Shemona Esrei is not you talking, you're being spoken through. It's almost like you're just channeling. God is speaking through Hashem's Fasei Tifta. And that's what he's explaining over here. This that you're saying 18 blessings during Shemona Esrei, these are just a flow, these are downloads. The B'chinas bittul de Chachma, the bittul of Chachma, is now just being through your neshama, through our souls, you're becoming a conduit for this revelations of Chachma and the bittul of Chachma be'olamais into the world. 18 representing the different dimensions of the world. Ba'amrei baruch ata havaya. You're saying baruch ata havaya. Which level of havaya? Havaya as it is illuminated b'chachma, in Chachma. More like the idea of 72 that we spoke earlier, which is in Chachma. That's the havaya that you're being mamshech in all the 18 blessings of Shemona Esrei. And what's the point? The point is why you're saying 18 blessings, because you want to direct this bittul into the world. In which level? Into the most extreme outer dimensions of the world, where there is no bittul. Where there is ego and separation, you want to zap it with bittul. Gam b'chitzayni yispenivra. Also in the external elements of creation, hanifradim, that are separated. Yesh me'ayin, that are yesh. You want to infuse with bittul. This is what it says, B'zoyar and Zoyar, that tzloisa, that davening, ubasar, the leizbei achila. Now we'll understand what it says in the Zoyar. That davening is in a place where there's no eating. Pirish, lamayla, b'pchenes habirudim. Davening is not related to the birudim, to the rectification that comes from the food, shemen amachol, from the food, shenehepach ladam, because food turns into blood, and blood means excitement. That's Shema, but not Shemona Esrei. The damu hanefesh, which is the damu of the zalshum b'chinas bina liba, which is the idea of the bina of the heart, taniskal that we mentioned earlier. V'al kein and which is noisy, but davening is not that way. V'al kein tzloisa b'chashayi dafka. That's why davening is in silence. Like it says, v'koila lo yishama klal, that her voice is not heard at all. Kanal barichas, as we said earlier. And therefore, hashikr, the shikr, as we said before, who is bina intensified, shikr, who's in the state of the joy of the wine, who is rooted in bina kaniskliel, is not allowed to daven, because he's not drawing down, because if he's shikr, he's plugging completely into bina, and he's not allowed to daven, because in davening he's contradicting davening. If you're making noise, if you're being a somebody, you're not at all in that chachma state. He's in the opposite. You're drawing down from the yesh of bina. Is to be loud, to be noisy, to come in a state of revelation of emotions, with sound. It's the opposite of bittul d'chachma. It's not right in davening, but everything has its place. In benching, make a lot of noise. Bench Birkas Hamazon means the blessing that's generated by the food. Al Yedei B'chinas Bina Liba, which is the Bina of the heart. Shikar Shara Le'Levarcha Birkas Hamazon. A shikar is allowed to bench. Kedem Esayim HaMayim the Birkas Hamazon. It's Terechedva V'Siva. Now we'll understand. Last week I said I don't understand it. Why the Zohar says after it says a shikar is allowed to bench because this isn't a place of eating. And he says, "Chalta v'savata," you'll eat and you'll drink, because Birchas Hamazon requires joy and satiation. So we didn't really figure out what is joy over here. How does joy come in? But now we'll understand, because the idea of eating is rooted in Bina, which Bina is the source of joy. And primarily, if you add a glass of wine as well, then the joy is amplified, so much stronger. So that's the Zohar says. In benching, that's a good thing. It's chedva. It needs this gladness, v'siva, and feeling satiated, which is this expansiveness that of self, a holy self, a godly self that wants to bench, not to do something else. Now with all of this, we'll understand what the sages say. Pasach b'mizbeach. Remember, we'll go back to a pasuk in Yecheskel, where the pasuk starts off speaking about the measurements of the mizbeach, and then it concludes Zeh shulchan. This is the table. The sages say, how do you have one verse that starts with mizbeach and ends with shulchan? So the Gemara says, just like today's days when you don't have a mizbeach, just like the mizbeach was a kapara in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, was an atonement in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, time of the temple, because people brought sacrifices. In today's days, we use the shulchan. V'sayim b'shulchan, ma mizbeach machapa, pirish, mizbeach hu b'chinas halas hakarbanos. Mizbeach is the idea of elevating karbanos. Shenikra, which is called achilas adam elyon dafk. It's the eating of the supernal man, but not the eating of the supernal man, not through the table, through the mizbeach. The channel of the table is the food that you bring in a manner where it goes into the supernal man, and it goes into the bina liba, into the heart, and activates the bina. This is a different type of eating of the supernal man, which is more the supernal man called chachma ma, which is related to the supernal man channeling his right channel, not his left channel, but the right channel, the channel of chachma, total bittul. As we spoke earlier, the spark of holiness being purified by Yosef, not like the Shvatim who are creating a noisy elevation, a silent elevation. That's the Mizbeach. The Hainu Shubchen is birurim. It's bitter, but which bitter? The bitter of Chachma. Kamayat tefillah ba'amida. It's like the tefillah of in Shmon Esrei by standing, ki yedua. And we take know that tefillah b'makom korban. The sages put davening. When they say tefillah, they mean Shmon Esrei. The amida, that's in the place of the korban. Mameshu. Ukemoi, and primarily within the korban itself, one of the main elements of the kapara, of the atonement, was not that it got burnt on the mizbeach, was that the kohanim ate from the korban, especially if chatos, kohanim had to eat, osham, kohanim had to eat, ola not, but the burnt offering not, but by a sin offering, a guilt offering, all these the kohanim had to eat. And it says that the kohanim ate, and through that the owner of the korban was atoned for. And here's an interesting thing. When the mizbeach eats, it could be a little noisy. It's burning on the fire. The kohen eating, we once learned about this more than once, that the kohanim are higher than the mizbeach. Because the mizbeach is still related to malchus, but the kohanim are referring to the adam, the supernal man, this ze'er anpin that's higher than malchus. And when they're eating, it means that they are consuming it silently, with chachma, not with bina. With chachma, they're consuming it. That's why the kohanim ate. They ate standing, because standing represents bittul, not sitting, not with an expansiveness, but with a total deep state of godly conduits when they ate it. It was almost like God was eating. That's what it is. In the Beis Hamikdash, it was revealed what the real human is, that the human is just a physical manifestation of the supernal human. And when the Kohanim were eating, it was God eating, the supernal man eating manifested their eating. the eating of man, ubala mischaprim, the owners are mischaper, are forgiven. V'mashal mizbeach mechaper. And it's interesting, on the mizbeach there was a libation of wine, but the kohanim weren't drinking wine. They were just eating. The bisman beis hamikdash b'achilas kohanim, and the eating of the kohanim ba'amida, when they were standing, bibchenas bittel, with deep bittel. And the kohanim, since eating a carbon is considered an avoda, they're not allowed to drink wine. If they drank wine, they were disqualified. Kach achshav b'shmoyne esrei ba'amida b'lachash. Imagine eating steak and eating it with the same consciousness like Shmona Esrei, which means total bittul tasha. But the berurim, the rectifications and elevations of spark of eating, which is birchas hamazon, which is the shulchan, not the mizbeach, shehu mebchenas bina, which is from bina keniska, as we said earlier, hu bchenas shulchanei shel adam achshav. It's our days in the time of Golos, shemachapet olav bebirchas hamazon, which is a kapara through benching, keniska ki shayrish hamizbeach v'shulchan em bchenas chachma bina. Because the root of the Mizbeach and Shulchan are Chachma and Bina. So the Mizbeach rooted in Chachma and Shulchan rooted in Bina. So tables rooted in Bina. So therefore, the experiences that we have through our Shulchan is a Bina experience. Today and today, and they're deeply connected, two friends that don't separate it, but yet each one has its own character. Umasha Amru the Bina Achshav. That the bitter of Bina today, what do the sages equate? The eating now to the Mizbeach of the Beis HaMikdash. Kamoy bitter the Chachma of the Beis HaMikdash does the same atonement like the bitter of Chachma of the Beis HaMikdash. So again, clearly over here, he's again emphasizing. Yeah. So clearly over here, he's again emphasizing, now it's coming alive. By the way, all the live human beings can come. Doesn't have to be just, until now I'm teaching just for the angels. Just for the malachim. But the idea of the bitter that we have today, which is through eating of the shulchan, that's a bitter of bina, versus the bitter of chachma, which is the bitter of the mizbeach. So that fits with what we were saying before, that the ikar bitter of this bina bitter, shalheves, fire, nitzutzes that are being elevated, is all shaykh be'ikar to the time of Gullus, because that's the time that we're collecting sparks on the outside. It fits well with that. But again, the only thing, as I said before, is that what he seemed to be saying is when he spoke about Chana being told not to drink wine, and because she was required to do different type of birurim, he mentions the birurim during the time of Gullus, which is dafka chachma not bina. So again, that's my question. I don't know. But because the woman of valor, which are the birurim that come from Malchus, which is, again, the question is who is doing the main birur? Is Malchus doing the main birur? If Malchus is doing the main birur, it's more of a birur of bina, more of a birur of blood, of passion, of fire, which is the idea of the feminine element, or the birur is being more the masculine birur, the birur of ma, the birur of the husband. The bitter of the husband is called the eating of the mizbeach. So he's saying ki eishes chayil ateres barla, because the woman of valor, she's the crown of her husband. The shulchan de malchus, because the shulchan of malchus, gomalasu toiv, she brings, as we spoke, batach bal leiv baila, her husband trusts in her. That vishala lo yachzor, she will bring him nitzutze kedusha. He trusts her that she'll fill the house with all the sparks of holiness, as I mentioned earlier. He trusts that she will rack up a bill on his credit card. She will bring in all the sparks. She will order everything that's outside, everything that's there to the house, all the sparks of holiness. And through that, these sparks are being elevated. She's bringing him, Gomalasu Toiv, she's bringing him so much good because the lights of Tov that are coming in. Gomalasu Toiv, Bigolos Yoisem B'Bizman Beis HaMikdash. Because there's a certain value to the Nitzutze Kedusha that are related to the sparks of Tohu, which in this particular element is more than the time of the Beis HaMikdash. So it's like this. There is another, I guess I understand it like this. In the time of the Beis HaMikdash, the inyan of channeling godliness from above, which is its own inyan, which is related more to mun coming down from heaven, light coming down, the Beis HaMikdash serving as a conduit for godly light coming from above, maybe even coming from a place higher than Tohu, from Chachma that's higher than Bina. That was more intense in the time of the Beis HaMikdash. And it will be so also in the days of Olam Haba, when we will finish the whole idea of rectification of the Nitzutze Kedusha. There will be Hamshacha of Oires Al Yoina Ma'oid, of very, very high lights, which won't be associated with rectifying the world. Purely revelation from above. That's when Torah and mitzvahs won't be about fixing anything, because everything is fixed already. It won't be that we won't do Torah and mitzvahs. We will do Torah and we will do mitzvahs, but as a manner of channeling from above. That taka is stronger then. But there is something that there is special, a dafka about fixing the lowly things that have fallen, which is an exercise of gullus, and this inyan, which brings us the intense lights of Tohu, which have its own maila, it has its own quality, that is there much more in the time of gullus than there is in the time of the Beis HaMikdash. So now the birur is, there it was more achilas kohanim, the eating of the kohanim of karbonis, that was the inyan, which was more drawing lights down from above, and now the avodah is more shulchan shel adam. It's the table of man. The call shulchanei shel adam elyon. It's called on the table of supernal man, which is Malchus, who brings all the sparks as understood from everything we said above. The zehu, and now we'll understand shoirish inyan, the root of the matter of where it says, Ki lo ya'ala lechem levado yichya adam. Man does not live only on bread. Ki al kol moitze pi Hashem yichya adam. Man also lives on what comes out of the word of God. So simply it means, the way we'll understand it simply, don't think you're only surviving off your food, but God has a lot to say in your life. And Eibishter gives you life, Rosh Hashanah, you live, that's what you live. Chassidus gives a little bit of a deeper, the Arizal gives an explanation. You're not eating, you're not living off the gashmias of the food, the material world of the food, you're living off the spark, Moitze pi Hashem, the what comes out of God's mouth. Again, this is a pasuk in Ekev, in Devarim. So it says that man is also living on the spark, Moitze pi Hashem, the spark of Hashem that's in the food, Yichya Adam. That man is living. That's the deeper pirush. But now we're going to learn a much deeper pirush than that. Because even the spark, to tell you that you're not living off the gashmias, off the material element of the bread, and of the physical element of the food, you're living off the spiritual element of it, you don't need the pasuk to tell you that. Who would think that a neshama that's spiritual is going to live off something material, is going to live off physical? It doesn't make any sense. Obviously, you're digesting the spark, you're digesting the energy. What it's saying is like this. We said earlier that there are certain energies that you only can access when you take food and you process those foods, and as a result of that, you access the spark. The spark comes from a source higher than the human, and as a result of that, you're increasing your life. That's what even physically food works, because you're drawing down this added life which comes from the source of the food. But that's not the only channel where Adam, and we said that, and that exists both in the small human and in the cosmic human. In other words, the human being down here, the Adam HaTachton, the lower man, and also in the Adam HaElyon, the supernal man, which are the sphirot, the attributes of Atzilus, which is called man. He too is given life from energies that are beyond Atzilus, the infinite lights of the world of Tohu. How is it being given to him? From the sparks of holiness. So, Yichye HaAdam, the man, we live, and the supernal man lives off what? Off lechem, off bread, off the sparks of holiness. But now the pasuk is saying, Ki lo ya'ala lechem levadoi. Of course, you live off the sparks of holiness, and the supernal man above also lives off the sparks of holiness. But that's not the exclusive source of life to Adam HaElyon, to the supernal man. Because there is certain hashpas, there's certain flows that do not come as serusa de latata, serusa de le'ela, arousal from below that triggers a descent from above. It's not only the sparks of holiness that come from tohu, there is also a concept called lechem in hashamayim, food that comes directly from, which actually is more fitting according to the pshat. Because what is the pasuk speaking of Parshas Ekev? It's saying that the Eibishter fed you man to let you know that man does not live only on bread from earth, but man also lives on lechem and hashamayim, which means on certain influences and certain nutrition, divine nutrition, that is not from tohu, which again is drawn by the sparks of holiness, from what is fixed, from the whole world of rectification of tohu and tikkun, but you have certain input from what's beyond tohu and tikkun. Like I mentioned earlier, we said that there are four primary manifestations of God's name. There's ban are the broken, related to the broken shards, the sparks of tohu that are here. There's memhei, that's the world of tikkun. Then there's samach gimel, 63, which is the source of tohu, from where the sparks come from, where we elevate the sparks. And that, from samach gimel and below, is the whole concept of shvira, shattered, and tikkun. The whole drama of creation, of rectifying the world that takes place until Mashiach comes, this whole process is all from samach gimel and down. From the shvira, from where it breaks, and downward. But then there's a level even beyond that, that's called Shem Ayin Beis. And that's on that level, there was never anything broken in the first place. And that's related to Chachma, which is beyond the Shvira, beyond that whole process. After we finish all the tikkunim, all the fixing of Ban, that Ban elevates sparks and brings it to Ma, into a state of tikkun, and as a result of that, it stimulates the lights of Samach Gimel and enhances life. That's today's days. And when we're finished doing that, we have what's called the Giluyim that are going to reveal themselves after Mashiach comes from beyond the entire spectrum of Tohu and Tikkun together, and that's Lechem min Hashamayim. That's the breads from heaven, and that is where we accomplish in our daily lives that experience is Shmona Esrei. Shmona Esrei is the time of channeling from Ayin Beis, Bittul, not from the food that you eat. Birchas Hamazon and even Kriya Shema that we spoke before is all related to Achila. From the food that you eat, you create your Shema, you create your Islavos, you create your fire, you create your passion. But Shmona Esrei is Bittul, Chachma, its energy is coming from above. That's what he's explaining over here. Man is not only living from bread from the earth, Eretz, the apkamazon, which is the idea of the second bracha of benching, which is, it's a bracha on the earth. Earth is malchus, which is this whole process of the earth that gives forth food. As we said earlier, that's not the only source of life. There is also what is moitze pi Hashem, that comes out of the mouth of God, that man lives. Shehu mezayna dechakimin. It's food to the wise. It's food from Chachma. It's food that nourishes more the brain than it nourishes the stomach. It's the idea of man. It's a flow of bittul, total bittul. Bina doesn't have that bittul. Bina, as we spoke earlier, it still has yesh, it still has you, it still has your desire. It's a different type of nourishment. B'chinas haman, this is the man, shenikra lechem min hashamayim, which is called bread from heaven. Shehu, which is the element of nourishment that's in the first blessing of birchas hamazon, of benching. Shehu b'chinas birchas hazon, which is the blessing of man. Ashatiken Moshe, which we know Moshe is the level of chachma, koachma, bittul. Moshe can't tolerate an avodah of bittul, of yesh, the avodah that's anything less than total bittul. Moshe, it's too coarse for Moshe. When Moshe watches someone making noise during davening, Moshe wants to throw him out of shul. In front of God, silence, bittul, shtika, silence. That's why Moshe complained when the Jews asked for meat. Moshe said, Ma'ayin li basar, because basar, as we spoke earlier, meat comes from bina. It's red, bina. That whole avodah of yesh, of I want, even in excitement, I'm burning up for God. Moshe is not going to tolerate that. Ma'ayin li basar, he doesn't have meat. He's min amayim, he's from water, the opposite of fire. Bittul, koyach ma, that's where she pulled him out from. Complete. He brought them the man. That was Moshe's food. We know that the man came b'schus Moshe. It was his channeling, and it's his level of neshama. And that's why when the Jews got the man, what did they say? The first thing they called it man ki lo yada mahu. They're mentioning ma. And Moshe Rabbeinu, before he brings the man, says, "Why are you complaining?" You should know you're complaining to God. Why? Because me and Aharon, v'anachnu ma, I am ma. You see, that whole ma that's coming out is right, it being displayed right when we're bringing the man, because the man is a nourishment of ma, of bittul. We understood it based on what we said earlier. Between the difference between Shmona Esrei, which is total bittul, to benching. Shebirchas hamazon benching is basar de ispe achila. The Zohar says in a place where there is eating. B'pchinas habirudim, in the world of birudim, of rectifications that have to do with you're taking things in this world that now are feeling themselves in a very unholy way. You're turning them around that they should feel Hashem and have a desire to cleave to God, but they still have a self. It's the earth that gives forth mazon. Shenikra lechem in haaretz, that's bread from the earth. It's what the supernal earth, pchinas malchus, which is the level of malchus, mivaredes, goes down into the klipa and selects sparks of holiness. Birurim de noiga, these birurim of the world of noiga. That's why the Zohar says, kan dimine, from this level, nafka mezayna la'alma. This is where all food comes to the world. That's why it's a place of eating. Meaning, kanal shulchan shlofnei Hashem. It's the shulchan. It's the level related to the shulchan that's in the Mishkan was a shulchan, and we know that the source of parnasa, of sustenance, was from the shulchan. That's why the sages also tell us that if you want parnasa, when you daven Shmona Esrei, you want wealth, you should tilt a little bit. You're davening east towards Jerusalem. Tilt a little bit to the north, because the shulchan was in the north, because that's where the source. Shulchan Shavnei Hashem, you do the shulchan b'tzafon shesham shefa hamazon. That's where the flow of mazon is. V'zau she'amar, and that's what it says. Ki lo lechem lavadoi. That this is not the only source of sustenance of life force. Shemepchinas birurim shal yedei haaretz, which is from birurim that come from the earth. Yichya will live. Adam, who's the Adam? The human down here, which is really connected to the human above. Pchinas Adam elyon da'atzilus, the supernal man of the world of Atzilus. It's not the only sustenance. Sha'oilem agabe shulchan, it's from these sparks that are now elevated and go onto the table. Shalifnei havaya, this table that's in front of Hashem, that malchus, that's called the shulchan, that's in front of her husband, in front of the Zeir Anpin, and she brings up the sparks. Shenikra Adam canal, that's called Adam, what we said earlier about Arichos at great length. Ki al kol moitza pi havaya, moitza pi Hashem means shenikra lechem min hashemayim. That which is called, what comes out of God's mouth directly, that's called lechem, bread from heaven. Komay mazen aman, that's the sustenance of the man. Yichya Adam. In other words, you can live from Shmona Esrei too, not just from eating. You can live from channeling God's words through your mouth. Remember we spoke by Shmona Esrei, you're not even saying your own words. It's not you. You're just a conduit, a channel for the flow of Chachma energy through your body into the world. Yichya Adam, toisvis oir ein seif baruch hu. This is an added of infusion of infinite light into the spiritual cosmos. Min b'chinas hashamayim elyonim. It's from the supernal heavens, not from the aretz. It's not from the birurim. It's not from what we're extracting from below and stimulating from above. That too is also, you're not living off what you're stimulating from below. What you're extracting from below. You're living off Hashem's reciprocation to what you've extracted. But that's still a reciprocation from below. That's not really called coming from above. Real coming from above is like man that comes directly from above. It's the difference between rain and dew. Rain is also coming from above, but rain comes from above after the Eid Yalam and Haaretz, after a mist goes up from the earth. There has to be, as we spoke earlier, 2 drops of water going up and 1 drop comes down. That's what the Gemara says. So that's rain. Dew is a moisture coming directly from above. It has nothing to do. And that's why the Gemara also says that rain, sometimes, if we don't deserve, we don't get. Chas v'shalom. There's a drought. But dew, loy me'etzer, is never held back. Because it's nothing to do with it's nothing to do from below. It's initiated from above. The mun, when did the mun come down? Beredes hatal. Since the mun is a type of food that's purely from above, it came down with the dew. It didn't come down because it's shaykh to the dew. It's all a flow of hashpah from above. It's from the shamayim al yonim that are makif, haklolim, the kavachit, v'chut. They're in these very, very high, distant makifim that are encompassing the entire system of the thread of divine light that's the source of both Tohu and Tikkun. It's even higher than it all. Shalamayla, again, this week's parsha, as I told you, there's a few references in this piece that we're learning to this week's parsha. Shalamayla m'b'chenes akudim nekudim, which is mentioned by Yaakov Avinu's sheep, where he's talking about speckled and ankle-ringed and striped and all this, which according to Kabbalah is referring to all these different levels of godly, a chain-like progression of worlds, of spiritual worlds. So Tohu is called Nikudim, and Tikkun is called Berudim. Berudim means like a blotch, and Nikudim means points. But this is higher than all of that. L'mayla mebchina shvira v'tikkun. It's higher than what is broken and what is rectified. She'ein sham b'chinas berudim klal. On that level, it's beyond all fixing. Da'ainu, al yedei b'chinas madreges hatfila. It's related to davening. The Salka, the Zohar says, that prayer goes up le'ela, above, ba'asar deleis be'achila, in a place where there is no eating. Ki b'chenes hatfila, hu b'chenes habitl dema de chachma. Because davening is a state, not bina, it's not a holy desire. There's no desire there. It's just total bittul. It's the bittul of ma, of koach ma, of chachma. And at this level, there has never been anything broken. Remember we said that from bina is where samach gimel, that's where the shattering happens. In chachma, there was no death. The main shattering was in the midos. They're called the 7 lower levels of the world of nikudim kidu, as it is known. The 7 lower spheres of bina is what fell. The midos of bina. The alkei nikrit sloisa salka le'ela le'ela. And that's why it says about davening that it goes up. It goes up. Bina must be called le'ela. This is called le'ela. Above, all the way into chachma. Lamayla mebchina shvira v'tikun. Beyond the whole system of shattered and fixing. K'mashakasa b'zoyar. A fascinating thing it says in the Zohar. Al pasik basi legani yochalti. It says, God says, I came to my garden and I've eaten. So the Zohar tells an interesting story. I looked up the Zohar. The Zohar says that Reb Shimon Bar Yochai was once walking in Tveria, in the city of Tiberias. And in his walk over there, he meets Eliyahu Hanavi. And Eliyahu Hanavi says to him, Eliyahu Hanavi is all excited to see him. Let me find it over here. It's a fascinating passage of the Zohar. Where is it over here? Reish. Zohar. Where is it over here? Reish Mem Aleph. Seif Amid Beis. Reish Mem Aleph. Seif Amid Beis. Reish. Oh, yeah. A little bit back. Oh, Reb Shimon of Azal Tveria Pagab Eliyahu Amalei Shlam Alei Damar. He said to him, who said to who? Eliyahu, I think, says to Reb Shimon, peace unto you. Amalei Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon says to him, "B'mai ka'asei kuchabi." See, you have to know. If you're Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, you know what to ask. He says, "What is God doing right now?" He's Eliyahu Hanavi. He knows what's happening. He says, "What is Hashem doing right now?" Amalei b'karbanis asuk. that Hashem is busy. He's now occupied with sacrifices. Now, this was not in the time of the Beis Hamikdash. Hashem is occupied with the learning, with the Torah of Karbanis. We learn a Masechta. What are you learning? Masechta Zvachim. What are you learning? Kachim. The Eibishter too. What is he learning now? Now Hashem HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Isaac with Karbanis. V'omar, and Eliyahu Navi tells him, and Hashem said a nice word from you. He says, V'omar milan chadatin mishmach. Hashem said over something from Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said over Zakah ant, and therefore you're so worthy. I came to say shalom to you, because if God is saying something in your name, I want to say hi to you. And he says, one thing I want to ask you to agree. In the question, in yeshiva, I asked a question. Eliyahu Navi said, I asked a question, and I want to hear your answer. What was my question? Alma da'asi, we know that in the future world, leis bayachila v'shtiyah. Chazal say, olam haba, ein bayachila v'shtiyah. There's no eating and drinking. So I asked the question, v'ksiv, basi legani. Hashem says, I came to my garden, which is referring to the Eibishter coming down. Achoisi kala, my sister, my bride. It's a pasuk in Shir HaShirim, referring to Hashem coming. And it says, achalti yari, I ate my forest, im divshi with my honey, v'goymer. So the question is, man the lesbe achila v'shtiyah, by the one that there's no eating and drinking, he says, ihu amar achalti yari im divshi. He says, I ate my bread and my honey, shasisi yeni, I drank my wine and chalavi with my bread. In other words, even if we're going to explain obviously all of this in a spiritual realm, still, if Olam Haba doesn't have any achila v'shtiyah, no eating, even humans will be in that state of no eating and drinking, even the spiritual eating and drinking. So the Eibishter God definitely is beyond the eating and drinking. So if so, why does it say that he ate? Reb Shimon says that God is a gentleman. No, so Reb Shimon says to him, and what did Hashem answer you? So tell me what God answered. There is Reb Shimon and the Eibishter said, oh, I see Reb Shimon over there in Tveria. Go. You can go ask him. You go and Yomer let him come. Oh, Yema let Reb Shimon Bar Yochai say. That's why I came to ask you. I didn't just come to say hello. I actually have the question because God said that I should ask you this question. Reb Shimon says, that Hashem has such love for the Jewish people, for Knesset Yisrael, for the Shechina and so forth. And because of the great love that he loves her, Shana Avdai, he changes his custom, Mamadehu Avid, from what he usually does. The Afal Gav, the Lav Orche B'melcha Umishtea. Even though Hashem doesn't eat and drink, it's not his style to eat and drink. Begin rechimusu achal v'shasa. Because of his beloved, he eats and he drinks. Hoyel v'asa legaba. Since he came to her world, it's talking about when God comes down in this world. He comes down to spend with the Shechina, with the Jewish people down here below. So therefore, he does what she wants. Avid Ru'usa, he does it the way she likes it. Kala ailas lechipa. A kala goes to the chuppah. Ubas lemechel. She wants to eat. Leis dein diyechel chasana bahada. If the kala is hungry after the chuppah and she's in the chuppah, the yichud room, and she's hungry, she wants to eat, isn't it just only nice for the husband that he eats along with her? Even if he's not hungry, even if he's not into it, if he doesn't want it, he's concerned already with going to the wedding. Whatever. It's only right for him and correct for him to eat with her. It's not his style to eat. Since I came to her, therefore, very good. And he goes into say that we learn it from David HaMelech, that David HaMelech invited HaKadosh Baruch Hu also, and Hashem changed his ways from what God usually does, and he brings a whole thing about that. I just thought something else similar to this. Kach vayikach ma'avnei hamokoim. Again, this week's parsha. Third reference to this parsha. It says that he took, Yaakov Avinu took from the stones of the place. Now, Yaakov Avinu is Kabbalistically represents HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yaakov is Teferes of Atzilus, so he represents HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If he's coming, when he comes to the base, to the Makam HaMikdash, means he's coming down to the place of the Shechina. So Yaakov going, we always learn Yaakov when he came to such a high place. For Yaakov, it's the opposite. He's going down to a low place. He's going down to the Beis HaMikdash. Even though he lies down only with pillows and blankets. This is the levels of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's, whatever that means, lying down, or whatever it means, pillows and blankets over here. That's what's befitting for the king. And she gave him stones. The Shechina and the Makam HaMikdash, she gave him stones. Lemishkaf to lie down. Since when is the king going to lie on stones? Kula yakabel beru'usa deliba. What a gentleman. He accepts it all with happiness, gladness of the heart. He sleeps al inen avonim, on the stones, even though it's not his style to do that. Same thing over here, even though it's not his style, because of the love of the kala, the imkoda, the base of the kala, only in her house he eats. In his own place he doesn't eat. There's the reason why the whole piece is brought over here is for this line. Ba'asrei, in his own place, he doesn't eat and drink. When he's at her place, he's eating and basar dilah achol v'shasa. In her place, he's eating and drinking. And then he compares the same thing with the malachim, that we know that when they came to Avram Avinu, they also did the same thing, that they ate, even though malachim don't eat, but now they did it. Obviously, that's Reb Shimon's answer. And he told him, he got very excited. Omalei, he said, Rebbe, I swear, he said, that this answer that you gave, God wanted to say. But he let you say it. Begin the loyla mechzik tuva legarmei kama knesses Yisrael, because he didn't want to compliment himself in front of. If Hashem would say that, he would have to compliment himself that he's a gentleman, that he's coming to her, and because God did not, out of his humility, did not want to compliment himself that he's such a good husband, that because his wife eats, that he's eating with this, he was rather you say it. That's why he sent me to you. Salik mila legarmach, he gave it over to you to say. Zakah ant ba'alma. How fortunate are you in the world? The marach mishtabach bach le'ela, that your master praises himself above with you. Like it says, Tzadik Moishel Yiras Alkim. Okay, what an awesome passage of the Zohar. So, but he's bringing it over here that, so you see from here, davening is in a place that goes le'ela, in a place where there's no eating. And there's a lower place that's called the Makaim of Achila V'Shtiya, a place of eating and drinking. The ichlu reim, this that it says friends eat, bringing it down in the Zeir Anpin, and then of course in Malchus, over there's a place of eating. But on a higher level, there's no eating. And in the 18 blessings of Shemona Esrei, nimshach mebchenas havaya de chachma, is drawn directly the energies of Chachma, Vavaya of Chachma, Hakaduma, the Adam Kadman, the primordial Chachma of Adam Kadman, Kamashakasav Chai Hashem Hu Yoiducha, V'hu Anikra Lechem Min Hashamayim, this is called bread from heaven. In other words, the non-eating of Chachma, he associates it also with eating, but a different type of eating. But eating that's not called eating. That's why we see that the Yidden weren't satisfied. It wasn't really food that's called eating. Lechem Min Hashamayim. So in the bottom he brings over here that from the Maimer, he brings from the Tzemach Tzedek, that in the Maimer and the Siddur, which were the Maimer we're learning, it implies that the idea of non-eating of Shemona Esrei, which is considered a place where you're not allowed to eat, and that's why a shikar who's influenced by food and drink is not allowed to daven. But Shemona Esrei. But benching a shikar is allowed to, a drunkard is allowed to, because this is in a place of eating and this is in a place of not eating. So according to him, it would come out like this. There's a place of eating, lechem mina aretz. Then the Shemona Esrei, which is an inyan of not eating, which is similar to the first blessing of benching, which is also referring to man, which is considered not eating. So he's associating the lechem and hashamayim with not eating. In the Tzemach Tzedek asks the question that it seems, but soif kol soif, lechem is still eating. It's low. Put it this way. We know, even, meaning, Tzemach Tzedek says that eating itself has two levels. Like we know, there's Eitz Hadas, which was one, when Adam Rishon was put in the Gan Eden, there was Eitz Hadas, and the Eitz Hadas, the tree of knowledge, was Tov and Ra, mixed good and bad. That's one level of eating. That's Malchus, where there's a mixture, and we have to do a purification. Then there's the Eitz HaChayim, the tree of life, which over there is also called eating, because it says, Va'achal, he will eat, V'chai la'olam, he will live forever. So that's also eating. Achal V'chai la'olam of Eitz HaChayim is the same idea like man. It's a higher type of eating. There's no ra there. There's no bad. It's not. The eating over there is just drawing down. It's not. That's why it says in the mun there was no. They didn't have any waste. They didn't go to the bathroom. There was no separation. They actually complained about it. So that's lechem and hashamayim. But it says olam haba ein by lo yachila v'shtia. There's no eating and drinking. Even the eating of the Eitz HaChayim. So in the bottom he brings. Different than in the Siddur. The Tzemach Tzedek and the Maimarim explains different than the Siddur. That the real inyan of not eating, the real eating of Olam Haba, not eating, is beyond even, as we mentioned, Lechem and Hashamayim. And that's called Hamshacha, a drawing of Oirais that are not shaykh to Kalim at all, to vessels at all. And that's these Giluyim that are going to happen only in Olam Haba, Ein by Lo Yachila V'Lo Yishtia. But over here in the Maimer, he doesn't differentiate that. He kind of just characterizes it into two categories. And earlier he associates this higher level of higher eating with Olam Haba, Ein by Lo Yachila V'Lo Yishtia. So, in any case, which is drawing down the lights of Toyu, this is not this exchange of we're elevating sparks and drawing. It's a direct, just a flow from above of powerful infusion of pure divinity that's not coming from within this whole system of purification. As it is known, that davening is that way, because davening is called a ladder. Also, again, this week's parsha. Again, nothing to do with this Maimer, had nothing to do with me choosing against the continuation of last week. I'll do a Maimer and Birchas HaMazon, but they keeps on jamming us with inyanim of the parsha. Ki yedu, as it is known, that tefillah nikra sulam mutzav arza. That tefillah is called a ladder that stands on the earth. V'roisha magia hashamayim, are the highest levels of shamayim, but it's mainly in a level of channeling. V'zeu shama b'zayir kan, the salka li'ela le'ela, up. Shu b'chenes aliyas ha-malchus, it means the elevation of malchus. Ad b'chenes malchus de ein sof. In davening, we go up till malchus of ein sof, shalifnei akav, which is higher than the whole inyan of shvira, of tikkun, of shattering and rectifications. Shamakif lakoil b'shava, that it is the ultimate makif that equals everything. Ki yidu, as it is known. Good davening is without eating. Here he connects it for the first time in the Maimer with the prohibition of eating before davening, because you don't need food for davening. But for Kriya Shema, you do need food. So that's why for Psukkah de Zimra, which is a different type of an experience, which is excitement, which is bina, for that you do need food. So they were the Hasidim give you the heter to eat before davening. But the mitzat shmone esrei, mitzat the inyan of tefillah, it's not an inyan of food. Because the energy you're getting from the food, which is the extraction of the spark, won't even reach there, because it's only going up in Samach Gimel, it's not going up in Ayin Beis, it's not going in 72, only in 63. Doesn't go. Because it's in a place where there's no eating. Here he makes that connection, like Olam Haba, she'ein b'yachila, where there is no eating. Because that's already after we finished all the birurim, after all the fixings. That's where the Zohar connects it. Alma da'asi, the future world, no eating. Valdan, because of this, shikr layatz letzloise, a shikr may not daven, betam shayayin bepchinas bina. Yayin is in the level of Bina. Shahaya Sham Shvira Bezayin Tachtoinis de Nekudim. Wine is in the world of Bina where there is Shvira and so forth, canal. And it's only the V'zeu ki al kol moitze pi avaya shebechai b'chon detzlois. That's called moitze pi Hashem. That part of your life is not just food that you take from below and sparks that you're elevating, but also in the channeling of godliness that has to do with Shemoneh Esrei. That's called moitze pi Hashem. You're just uttering Hashem's name, Baruch ata Hashem. You're emanating Hashem's name, and you're drawing life down just from those utterances. Yichya ha'adam de le'ela, the supernal man above, shu b'china zah ze'er anpin, k'mo shekasav, v'ani tefila lekeil chai. Chayoy, sha tefila lezah, nikra b'china samshachas chai achayim. The tefillah for the Zeir Anpin is called the drawing forth of Chai HaChayim, this fountainhead of life, Ma'atzmus HaMatzel, from the essence of the emanator. V'zeu sha'kadosh Baruch Hu mispalel. This is what it means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is also channeling. The level called HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is called Zeir Anpin, is davening. V'koreya, and he's bowing when it says Baruch Ata, because bowing means to draw down. Havaya. V'alderech ha'yadua b'tefillah ba'adam ha'tachten, just like we know in a human being, that when you're davening, it causes your neshama to reveal itself from your nose in your whole body. Shemeir al yadei or nishmasei ba'apoi. The light of the neshama that's in the nose. Before davening, we're called like a person who's got his whole neshama stuck in his nose, and by davening you reveal the neshama from your nose out downward. Kach l'may l'ksiv to ulasi echtam lach. To the one of the nose. I'm davening, which means just an inhaling of life. It's associated with ketores, just drawing. It's not birurim. This is the moitze pi avaya. Okay, this is totally what I wanted to learn today. And based on all of this, next week we'll understand the shoresh of the two breads. The lechem and hashamayim and lechem and haaretz and the two blessings, and eventually the last piece is going to take us back to lechem mishnah, the double bread that we have in Shabbos that represent these two inyanim, as the two of them, however, become completely evened out on Shabbos. So be'ezras Hashem, join us next week Thursday for that final shir, and then after that we're going to be learning already about Hanukkah. All right, everyone, be well and have a good Shabbos. We should already learn in Yerushalayim, Be'ezras Hashem. Okay. Oh, wow. This is the Siddur of the Alter Rebbe.